You are President. President Ado is na miga kanye ntohom ado wezon to here ni mikata ba meeting po ovuma egere mi ajizama emi aduro anya chiaro ma ike kura nyanchi egba bakle nenye retire ha even in death ta mioizon miovanya viaro sege ke hafi maiji ale present glea anya dodo be every quarter nyako anya chiaro va dara toma na mia dro nyamchi ke this quarter ma anya omaton ivaro toma gbanto kure wheels nchi nenyaku de kaflache leki nyapa kashino no o mage na mia view mia strong mia plono to kata. It's like having a voice even after death, which is very important. Social security, is this something we can solely rely on in retirement? When you have a fine. Disability and retirement. Workers' compensation. Onchi drugimela exam. Alba hafi ma ayo mianovia ogere toma. Majiba ma ado jane tohe be olon. Be ya famia de magba apuncho anya achi onchinami. Ta afunya la mute. Kakafi ogbonyarea majiba ma pun viere chunchi nemnya nyame yonya afi na ojengo fogoma. I will ask that you permit me to read his bio in English very briefly. So lawyer John Kombla Akpalu was born at Alakple. Alakple imi blabo vasish imayi alabato chukuna lafia gra Alakple. He was even born overseas. He obtained his O-level certificate from Kita Secondary School in 1979. He went on to Laboni Secondary School and the University of Ghana, Legon, where he read law. He was called to the Ghana Bar in 1987. He was a teaching assistant at the Legon Faculty of Law, and at the same time, a law teacher at Jimpa. From there, he went on to pursue his Master of Laws degree at Dalhousie University in Canada. He then immigrated to the United States and obtained a second Master of Laws from Harvard Law School and a third Master of Law in Taxation from the University of Denver Graduate Tax Program in Colorado. He also has a fourth master's, this time Master of Science in Information and Library Science from the Pratt Institute in New York. Here, for Agbanasosro George Neal Weber. Many of you. Mr. Akpalu was called to the New York Bar in 1994 and has since been in practice. He worked for some law firms, but since 2006 has had his own practice. He's into general practice, but with concentration in workers' compensation, social security, disability, and immigration. He has also practiced in the areas of wills and estates, real estate for future proceedings, and personal injury. In his practice as a lawyer, he has helped many Ghanaians with their legal problems and continue to do so even today. Mr. Akpalu is admitted to the New York courts, the US Tax Court, the United States District Courts, for the Southern and Eastern District of New York and the United States Court of Appeal for the Armed Forces. Mr. Akpalu is a true Voltairean who is committed to the development of the Oti region and the protection of the Ewe language and culture. He's passionate about public service and is a member of various associations, including the United Volta Association of New York, the Kitasco Alumni Association of North America, and the Alakble Diaspora Association. Awesome resume. So after listening to this, Novio, you cannot agree with me that our guest speaker tonight is overqualified to handle these topics. Ayi chuma, ta nyevang stronger le teacher akwa ntontogbo. Kerekma abiabade, nengfuma nyacho banle, pakle ngochi anglo notes adari. Abone pongo voa momonagami nemya bieba biao ene bebia bia ata adoshireji. Zoom has some reactions button. Ata I click on raise hand. Almokboge ado nado message them bebia le shi bia ta nyamula tomima ke merokumye nkujia echa ne boba glito iro oba novio mi o segrilo ado ale mi ronchi mi ronkujia
Never.
I'm a blogger fly. Novio mi segrilo
Never.
okay eglecho vu vaje ayiji
Udejo
eje ayi sranji ke eglea ayivu keke evangelo ya jonji makwe dale ya John oba glejeji o tef lefiare maroko ke enye na kovina mia na gbina milo novio join me in welcoming our own brother lawyer John Akpalu to lead us in today's section. Lawyer, Maroko is all wisdom. Akpe, wisdom.
Thank you very much for the invitation this evening. We have a lot of topics to cover. I want to try to make it as interesting and as practical as possible. And I'm going to be very brief and just have an overview so that the questions you have will lead to an expansion of the various topics. It is quite late, it's 9:21 now, and some people are already preparing for bed, and we shouldn't take too long. So I will flesh out the topics and invite your questions, and hopefully we will achieve something tonight. So I'm very happy that the topics you chose does not include immigration. It seems that most of us here, our preoccupation is always with immigration to the detriment of other important subject areas. So luckily, I'm not here to address immigration this evening. And I chose for my first discussion, and I'll call it a discussion because of the fact that I'm going to have you ask questions for us to get in depth. The first topic I chose is Social Security. And just as a starting point, during the olden days, every year they will mail you an envelope, usually with green lettering on it, which tells you about your Social Security benefits if you were disabled, if you were to retire. They no longer do that. What you have to do now is to go on a Social Security website and create an account with a username and password. And once you create an account with a username and password, you are able to see your Social Security benefits, and you're able to see how much you will be entitled to if you were to retire or if you were to be disabled. So I would enjoy enjoin all of you to do that, because sometimes what happens is that your employers are supposed to report your Social Security earnings every year, but sometimes they don't report the correct amount, which means that when you retire or you become disabled, you may not get the right amount. So it is important to check your Social Security statements at least once every 6 months. Make sure that all your earnings have been reported to the Social Security Administration so that you are protected in terms of getting the correct benefits if you retire or if you are disabled. Now, I have as subtopics Social Security Retirement, SSI, Social Security Disability, and Survivors Benefits. Social Security Retirement just means what it says. You retire after you've worked for a number of years in the US and you collect your Social Security. SSI is called Supplemental Security Income. It is like welfare that the federal government gives you because you do not qualify for Social Security disability. So if you do not qualify for Social Security disability, then the government can give you welfare at the federal level, and that is called SSI or Supplemental Security Income. Then we have Social Security disability for those who are disabled and cannot work. And the last subheading is Survivors Benefits. In certain cases, when you pass away, certain survivors may be entitled to Social Security benefits. So that is an overview of what I'm going to cover under Social Security. Now, if you look at the second notation here, Social Security retirement means that you have worked for at least 10 years in the United States and have enough credits to retire. Every year they credit you with 4 credits, and we call them quarter hours. So every year has 4 quarters. So 4 times 10 is 40. So you have to have a minimum of 40 quarter hours before you can collect Social Security at retirement. Retirement has 2 ages. One is Social Security retirement age. The other is full retirement age. For most people, they can retire at 62. And if you don't want to retire at 62, you can retire at 67. The benefit of retiring at 62 is that you collect your retirement benefits earlier and you can decide what to do for the remainder of your years. You can alternatively decide to wait until you are 67, which means that you are going to get more benefits at 67 than at 62. But the catch is that you have to continue working between 62 and 67. So it is not based on age. It is based on the fact that you continue to work after you were 62 years, and that resulted in you getting increased benefits at 67. So that is the slide number 2, and I've put here the various years of birth and what age you can retire and what benefits you can get. So you can take a look at it afterwards. I will provide a copy of the slides. Now, SSI. SSI, also called Supplemental Security Income or welfare, is given to people who are 65 years or older who do not qualify for Social Security disability, people who are blind, and you have to be a US citizen or an eligible alien, somebody with a green card, before you can collect SSI. Because you did not work for it, the assumption is I did not make the Social Security threshold, that is why they have to give you welfare. Because of that, it is means tested. Means tested means that you cannot have more than $2,000 in assets. That is cash, jewelry, cars, real estate, more than $2,000 in assets. Or if you're a couple, you cannot have more than $3,000. So if you apply for SSI, because you haven't worked for 10 years or more in the US and you have $2,000 or more in your bank account, you will be denied. If you're married and between you and your husband or you and your wife, you have $3,000, you will be denied. So it is means tested. Social Security disability is what you have worked for. So you can be Donald Trump. You can be Donald Trump and still collect SSD because that is something you worked for and they are giving you back your money. The other condition is that you have to be resident in the US, Washington. You have to be resident in the United States, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, or the Northern Mariana Islands to continue to collect SSI. If you are collecting SSI, you go to Ghana, you stay for more than 30 days, they'll stop your payments until you come back to the US. So I've had situations where people brought their parents, the parents were here for 2, 3, 4 years. They are elderly, they can't work. Maybe they work for a year or two. They don't qualify for SSD. They are giving them SSI, but they are giving them only $500 a week. The money is not sufficient for them to even pay their rent. They want to go to Ghana and continue to receive the 500, but they cannot because you cannot be away for more than 30 days if you're on SSI. You have to be present in the US. So it becomes a catch-22 situation. So that is SSI. Now we go to Social Security disability. Social Security disability are for people who have worked and have become disabled. Now, because it is possible for you to be disabled before you have worked a full 10 years, they have various qualifications based on your age. So somebody can be disabled at 24. They came to the US when they were 20, they became disabled at 24, or they came to the US at 23, they became disabled at 30. They would not have been able to work for 10 years. So does that mean they cannot collect even though they have paid Social Security? So they have all these other provisions whereby even if you do not get the full 10 years, you can still qualify. To be disabled in Social Security means that you are not able to work because you have a condition which results in you being unable to work for 12 months or more, or a condition which result in death, something terminal. Therefore, you have to show that you are not able to work. If you are working and making a certain amount of money, even if you are in a wheelchair, even if you are terminal, then technically you are not disabled. Disability means you're not being able to work. And the process is for you to apply to the Social Security office. The Social Security office will collect all your medical reports. They'll review your file and they'll make a decision. If they grant you Social Security, they'll send what is called an award letter. If they don't grant you, you can appeal the decision and you go before a Social Security judge who will review the evidence anew. If the judge decides that you are not disabled, there is an appeals bureau you can appeal to. If the appeals bureau also denies you, you can file a suit in federal court against the Social Security Administration. So if you look on the right side, you see sequential evaluation process. These are the steps that the judges use to evaluate people for Social Security. So SGA means substantial gainful activity. Are you working? Are you making money? If yes, then you are not disabled. Then it stops there. If you're not working or you are working for $1,000 a year, then the next question is your condition severe enough? If your condition is not severe, then you are not disabled. If it's severe, then the next stage, they have certain medical reports that they'll look at to see if your condition is mentioned there. If it is, then you are disabled. If not, you go to the next stage and they find out, okay, even if you are not disabled according to the medical listings, looking at the type of disability you have, are you able to do any work that you have done in the past 15 years? If you're able to do any of the work you have done in the past 15 years, then you are not disabled. If not, then they go to the next stage. If you're not able to work in a hotel, you're not able to do living, you're not able to work in a nursing home and lift 100 pounds, 200 pounds, is there any other work that looking at your level of disability you can do? If there's some other work in the national economy, then you are not disabled. If there's no other work, then yes, you are disabled. So This is called the sequential evaluation method. Now let's go to the next screen. So if you have worked for 10 years or more and you have passed away, you can have benefits paid to your widow or widower. So, and this situation came about because some women stayed home to look after children, which means that they themselves did not work long enough to get their own social security. Now their husbands have passed away and they are left without any income. So if your husband has worked for 10 years or more, then the widower, the widow can get social security benefits. Also, even a divorced spouse, if the marriage lasted for more than 10 years, can also get benefits. If there are children who are under 18 years old and they are not married, or if they are 19 and they are in school, they can also get survivors benefits. And any child who is disabled before they were 22 years and remain disabled can also get benefits. And if your parents depend on you and you pass away, they can also get benefits provided they are 62 years or older. Okay, so that is an encapsulation of Social Security because we don't have too much time. Now I'll go to workers' compensation. Every state in the United States, except for one or two of them, have a system of workers' compensation to compensate people who are injured at work. Before 1910 in New York, if you were injured at work, you would have to file a lawsuit against your employer. And you would have to prove that somebody was negligent, somebody left water on the floor, somebody didn't fix your chair correctly, and you were going to sit down, you fell backwards, you have to file a lawsuit. And you have 3 years to file the lawsuit, and the lawsuit can take years. There's a jury trial, there are adjournments. By the time you make any recovery, it's 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. So the legislature came to the point that someone who is working and living paycheck to paycheck, if they have to wait for 5, 6, 7 years to collect money, even if it's $10 million, how are they going to live for the 5 years? So they came up with a workers' compensation system. And what also propelled that was that there was an accident. There was a factory which was on fire and 146 women died in the fire because the employer had locked all the exit gates to prevent them from stealing or playing transit. So they locked all the exits, 146 of them died in the fire. So because of that, the need was felt to have a law to protect workers. And what they came up with was the workers' compensation system. Now, there are two types of workers' compensation claims. One is called ANCR, and the other is called ODNCR. ANCR is short for Accident, Notice, and Causal Relationship. And ODNCR is for Occupational Disease, Notice, and Causal Relationship. If you go to work and there's water and you fall down, you are lifting up a patient and your back gives way, you're going down the steps and you miss your step and you fall, you're trying to sit on the chair and the chair rolls from under you and you fall. Something that happens suddenly is an accident. Occupational disease happens gradually. So you are a subway motorman and just hearing the noise of the trains and the grating of the steel on steel, you start developing a hearing problem until it comes to a point that is noticeable. Or you are in a job that requires lifting, and after lifting for so many years, your back starts giving you a problem. Or you are someone who works at a computer and after typing for so many years, you develop carpal tunnel syndrome. Because those did not happen on any particular day, they happen gradually, we call it an occupational disease. So an occupational disease is something that happens due to the nature of your job. But we say CR for causal relationship because whatever happened or whatever injury you are claiming has to be related to your job. You can't say I was lifting heavy patients at work and I develop a hearing problem, because the hearing problem cannot naturally come out of lifting. But if you have a back problem because of lifting, then the two can be connected. Now, the way to process your workers' comp claim is to file a claim with the Workers' Compensation Board on a form called a C3. If you have a lawyer, the lawyer will file a retainer. Now, you need to notify your job within 30 days of your injury. You also need to have medical proof, and you have to file your claim within 2 years. If it's an occupational disease, then we say 2 years from the time you knew that your job condition caused your situation, or 2 years from the time you should have known. Okay, and compensation awards you money for the time you are home and not able to work, and also pays your medical bills. So there are two monetary awards in compensation. One goes to pay your medical bills, and one pays you for the time that you are home and you're not able to work. Now, what is your compensation based on? Workers' comp in New York will take your date of accident and take it back 1 year. So for example, if you were injured on September 22nd, 2021, the question is, from September 22nd, 2020 to September 22nd, 2021, what did you make for that whole year? 50,000, 42,000, 30,000, 29,000, and then they will divide by 52, and that is called your average weekly wage, or AWW. So payments made to you in workers' comp depend on your average weekly wage. If you haven't worked long enough, let's say you started a job, you worked for only 2 weeks and you got injured, or 3 weeks, or 2 months. The law says that because you have not worked long enough, taking your 2-week or 3-week paycheck is not symptomatic, and therefore they get somebody who has a similar job like you, and they use that person's payroll to determine how much you should be paid. And your payments depend on whether you are 100% disabled or whether you are partially disabled. And that depends on the doctor's reports from your doctor and from the insurance doctor. Now, after you have been on compensation for a year, 2, 3 years, your case becomes permanent. And permanency is determined based on whether you have a systemic injury or you have an injury to your extremities. Systemic injuries to your neck and back, and extremities are your fingers, your toes, your hand, your elbow, your arm, your leg, your toe, your foot. Those are extremities. And those you are compensated for by the compensation board determining that you have suffered a permanent damage, and they calculate an amount of money and give to you, and that is it, and then they close the case. For neck and back injuries, the compensation board will classify you permanently partially disabled. And based on that, they'll pay you money every week or every 2 weeks. It's like a pension. But unless you are 100% permanently disabled, they don't pay you for life. They pay you for a certain number of years. So that is how compensation works. I have 13 things you have to do to make sure you win and maintain your compensation case. One is to call an ambulance. Most people say, oh, let me go home and have my husband take me to the hospital. If you do that, then the employer may come and say you were not injured on the job, because anytime there's a job injury, the premium goes up. So the fewer injuries, the better. But if an ambulance comes to your job and picks you up from there to the emergency room, it is almost impossible for you to lose the case, because the ambulance company will have what is called an ambulance call report, whereby they'll indicate that they came to pick you up at this location and took you to that location. We spoke about notice, which means you have to tell a supervisor that you are injured. Also, you have to list all your injuries. If you say, I hurt my back, but when you hurt your back, you fell down and injured your leg, You have to add a leg to the case. Otherwise, they'll say, well, you only said your back. How come now you say your leg? Therefore, we're not going to pay for treatment to your leg. Also, when you go to your doctor, tell the doctor all your injuries. You have to go to a compensation doctor. Only certain doctors are allowed to treat injured workers. Not all doctors are allowed. So you have to see a doctor who takes workers' compensation patients. You also have to make sure you treat regularly with a doctor, hire a workers' compensation lawyer, file your claim within 2 years. And if the insurance company does not have your payroll, it is good for you to bring your own tax returns, W-2s, and pay stubs for the judge to use to determine your compensation. You have to see a doctor every 90 days for him to say you're not able to work. And it is good to stick to one doctor because the doctor may have to testify at a point in time as to your condition. If the doctor has seen you regularly, he'll be able to give a better testimony than someone who saw you a few times and then you ran from there to a different doctor. I also say you should think before you file for disability. If you file for disability benefits, okay, workers' comp is for injuries on the job. Disability is for injuries off the job. So if you go and file for disability, workers' comp or the workers' comp insurance company will get your disability forms and try to use that to disprove the fact that you were injured at work. They'll say you are not injured at work, otherwise you would have filed for workers' comp and not disability. The same goes for unemployment. Unemployment benefits are for those who are able to work, but they don't have a job. Workers' comp are for those who cannot work even if a job is available. So by filing for unemployment, you are telling the workers' comp board and the carrier that you are strong, you can work. And by filing for workers' comp, you are saying you are not able to work, you are disabled. The two are opposites. So you have to be careful when you file for unemployment. Okay, so that is also just a brief overview of workers' compensation. Am I going too fast?
No.
No,
Good.
you're doing well. You're doing well. You're on time. Thank you.
Okay. So we go to wills and estates. Okay, so under wills and estates, we have testate and intestate succession. Testate succession is someone who dies and makes a will to govern distribution of his or her assets. And we call that person the testator. Intestate succession is when you die without a will. And those who take property from you are called distributees. If you have a will, you appoint somebody to take your place and distribute your property, and that person is called an executor. If the person is a woman, the person is called an executrix. And the person who looks over the administration of your estate is called an administrator. Now, why would you want to make a will? You want to make a will to avoid conflicts among your heirs as to who should take what property. Also, if you get more than others, then it's good to make a will. And the other thing is that when Ghanaians die, by customary law, their body belongs to their family. In Ghana, your family is your extended family. In the US, your family is your wife and children. So when Ghanaians die here and the family says, we want the body back in Ghana, and the wife says, no, I'm the family here, so I'm going to bury him here, it becomes a problem. And you can always make provisions for burial arrangements in your will and say, okay, if I die, I want to be buried here, or I want to be taken to Ghana. So if you say you want to be buried here, then the will becomes something that your wife can use to tell the family that that is your wish, and she's not the one trying to seize the body from them. Now, for a will to be valid, it has to conform to the law of your domicile. Domicile means the place where you spend your time, or the place where you identify as the place which you identify as your home or as your permanent resident. So if you are here and you go to Ghana and come, the US is your domicile. If you make a will which conforms to Ghana law, but which does not conform to the US law, that will can be set aside because the will has to conform to the place of domicile, which is New York. Now, a will has to be in writing, but some exceptions are made for non-competitive wills. Non-competitive wills are wills that are not in writing, and holographic wills are wills that are in the person's own handwriting. And these are exceptions made for soldiers on active duty. The person is injured, the person may die, and there's no time to write a will and get witnesses. So the person may just call 2 or 3 witnesses and dictate their will, or the person may take a pen and paper and write their will. So these are for soldiers on active duty and merchant marines at sea. To write a will and have it declared valid, you have to be of sound mind and body. You have to be over 18 years. You have to have the will attested to by 2 witnesses. The witnesses do not have to know what is in the will, but they have to see you sign a will and should be able to testify that you signed of your own free will and nobody pressed you or nobody exercised undue influence over you. In Ghana also, you have to be 18 years or more to have the valid capacity to make a will. You also need 2 or more witnesses, and to be an executor in Ghana, you have to be about 21 years. Ghana law requires that if the person is blind or illiterate, someone must read the will to the person, and the person must acknowledge the will as his or her last will and testament. And the one who read the will to the person must sign the will and provide his or her address. Although in cases where the address is not provided, the court will still consider the will valid. Now, after you pass, there is what is called probate. Probate means presenting the will to court. Usually in New York, we call it the supper. Make sure you have notified the beneficiaries and the distributors who will take if there was no will, and issue the executor with letters testamentary to administer the estate. Now, if you have properties here and properties in Ghana, it means that a probate has to be done twice. You have to do one here in the US, and then you have to carry the letters testamentary to Ghana, lodge them with the court in Ghana, and probate whatever properties are in Ghana. And we call that ancillary probate. The same with New York. If you have properties in New York and the will is probated in New York, but you also have a vacation home in Florida, then that will has to be probated again in Florida, and there will be an ancillary probate in Florida. Now, probate is not only expensive, but can also be confusing, can also bring conflict, because some people may want to challenge the will. If they challenge the will and they throw it out, then they may get more than they got under the will. So they may say, you were not of sound mind and body, you were in the hospital, your body was raped by morphine, you did not know what you were doing, or the signature on the will does not look like your signature, somebody may have forged your signature, anything could happen. So if you want to avoid probate, then there are certain things you can do. The policy will require that you list beneficiaries. So after you pass and they present your death certificate to the life insurance company, they will just issue a check to the beneficiaries, and that is it. They don't have to go to court for anything. The same way if you have pensions and you list people who should benefit from your pension, the pension fund will pay that to the people, and that's it. If you have a bank account, you can go to the bank and say, okay, if I die, give whatever money is there to this or that person. It's called POD, or paid on death. And once you pass away, the bank will just write a check to the person upon presentation of the death certificate and just close the account. The person doesn't have to go to court. You can have a joint bank account with someone with right of survivorship. So if 2 or 3 of you are on the joint bank account and you pass, then the account automatically transfers to the other people on the account. You can also set up a trust and say that if I pass, whatever is in the trust should go to this or that person. If you have a
Okay,
house,
somebody's sleeping.
a joint tenant, and give yourself a life estate in a property. So once you pass away, the joint tenant becomes the owner. The same with funeral arrangements. You can make your funeral arrangements without putting it in a will. And then I said trust, and they are also called living trust. Now, just a quick point here. In New York, you are not allowed to disinherit your wife. You can disinherit your children, but not your wife or your husband. And so the law allows what is called a widow's right of election, which means that your wife or husband can take either $50,000 of your assets or 1/3 of your net estates, whichever is greater. So you could say to my dear wife, I leave you $200. But if 1/3 of your estate is $2 million, then your wife can choose the $2 million and forget about the 200. Unless you have a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement, which says that whatever you get in the will is what you take. Otherwise, your wife or husband, for that matter, has a right of election against your will. Now, in Ghana, we have the marriage of Mohammedan's ordinance, and we have customary law, and they have various ways of distributing property when you pass. It's a lot, it's complex. I don't want to go into all that, but the important thing is that because of the fact that when people die in Ghana, the family comes, drives the wife and children out, locks up the property, especially in societies where inheritance is matrilineal. The PNDC government in 1985 passed the Intestate Succession Law, PNDC Law 111. And the purpose of that was to make inheritance when a person dies without a will uniform throughout the country. And they also passed the registration law for people to register their customary marriages. So in New York, if you die without a will, this is how your property is distributed. If you have a spouse, a husband and wife, and no children, your wife or husband gets everything. Your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father, your uncle, your niece, your nephew, they don't get anything. If you have children, but you don't have any wife, your children get all your property. If you have a wife and children, your wife gets 50,000 plus half of the balance. And then the rest goes to the children. If your parents are alive, but you don't have a wife and you don't have any children, your parents inherit everything. If you have brothers or sisters, but no wife, no children, or no parents, then your brothers and sisters inherit everything. And if you don't have any family, then your property goes to the state of New York. So this is what happens in New York if you die intestate without leaving a will. Okay, in Ghana, under the PNDC law 1985, okay, if you have a wife, children, and parents, your wife takes 3/16 of your property, the children take 9/16, your parents gets 2/16, and then customary law is 2/16. And this is for people who may have matrilineal inheritance system, and the nephew is supposed to take, so the nephew will get a 2/16, your wife, children, and parents will get the rest. So if you die with no parent, but spouse, children, then your spouse gets 3/16, your children get 9/16, and the customary law distributes the 1/4. So this is the table for inheritance where there is no will in Ghana. So this is the end of my presentation, and I will invite your questions.
Thank you, Lawyer John. That's very elaborate and insightful. Thank you very much. So, Novinho, we've heard it all. A very important information for us to deliberate on. And so if you have any questions, please let us know. Lawyer is around to help us discuss some of them in detail as needed.
Okay,
yes,
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah. Might be a lawyer Akpano presentation. Might be the difference between a living trust and a living will.
Well, there's nothing like a living will. It's just a will. It's a will, and then we have a living trust. A living trust is a trust that you have on your life. So for example, you can have a will and have a trust in your will. So if I pass away, sell my house, put that money in a trust, and my children are 8 and 10 years old, let so and so look after the trust until my children turn 18 and then give them the money. So nothing will happen until you pass away and your house is sold. And then the money put in trust. But if you have a house now and you say, okay, you want this child to inherit that house, you can put the house in trust now and give yourself a life estate in the house. Like I have a right to live in that house for the rest of my life. After I pass, then that house goes to that person. So that's the difference.
Okay, hello, John.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I have a colleague here, Lawyer Ramsey Awuku.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
John. Yeah, thank you for your erudite presentation. You've done very well. We've given us summary of all this. But the question that the woman asked, there's something called a living will. The living will is sometimes referred to as advanced health directive. Advanced health directive.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, this is where you make an arrangement as to how you should be taken care of, just in case you are not able to take care of your health needs. Okay, so if you go to the hospital and things,
you know what happened? A lady called me and said, "I want to do my living will." I said, "Well,
yeah.
What do you mean by your living will?" You know, my husband died and there was a will. I want to make my will. I said, okay, a will is a will. It's not a. But if you mean advanced directives, sometimes called a living will, then that is correct. Yes, that's to tell if you're incapable of making medical decisions.
Exactly.
You want to appoint somebody to make decisions on your behalf. Yes.
Yes.
So some people call it a living will, but it's more of advanced directives as to your medical care.
Yes. Yeah, the reason why I asked is my one at the hospital that my maybe a patient. So do you have a living will? Any advanced directives?
Exactly.
If they don't have those things, then we said, okay, do you want paperwork, information on it? If they say yes, then we have to refer them to the legal department. They will have to bring in those things for them to sign.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that calling it a living will is a bit of a misnomer. Because
well, but John, with all due respect, John, that is the term they use here. So you must as well let them know.
In England, they don't call it a will. Is something that operates after you die. So I don't know why the US decided to call it a living. It's more of advanced healthcare directives.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that is beside the point. So we are now clear on that.
Yeah. Thanks for answering that question. So any further questions?
And it's also called a healthcare proxy.
Yeah, proxy. Oh, yes, right.
No, okay.
John, can I say this? John, you make a very good point, and let me just throw some more light on it. Like if someone dies and he has a will, you have to go through the probate. It takes time. It's very expensive and all those things. But sometimes you have the money at the bank and you are dead. We need money to bury you. To go through the probate will take so many years. Like what John said, if you have a bank account, go to your bank and ask them to add a beneficiary to the account. Pay on death. Okay, so when you die, they can just walk straight to the bank with your death certificate and your ID, and the money will be given to him direct without going to court and all those time-wasting mechanism. Okay, so if you have money at the bank right now, tomorrow go to your bank and add a beneficiary to your account that when I die, give the money to A, B, C, D. So it's something that I will encourage all the audience to do. All right?
And to add to that, New York law gives the right to a wife or a husband to withdraw up to $25,000 from a bank account upon death.
Upon death,
without going through probate or going to court, because you need money right away. And then any car up to $25,000 the wife can take also without going to court. So those are exemptions from probate.
Exactly.
If you are adding the person to the bank account, do you have to notify the person? The person have to be aware that you are adding them to the bank account?
Well, they have to be aware because they are the ones that have to go to the bank and present your death certificate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes the issue is that the only asset the person has is, let's say, $50,000 in the bank. Nothing else. Everything has been, arranged. But just because of that, you have to go through probate to get your hands on. But the bank may refuse to give you the money until you present letters of administration.
Yeah. So
the POD takes care of that.
Yeah, John. How about if in your will?
And let me also make this point. Yeah. A lot of money in Ghana, and a lot of men in Ghana die, and their money is taken by the bank because they had it from their wives. So the wives have no information that the husband has money in the bank, and the husband dies, and the money is taken by the bank because nobody goes to claim the money. Maybe the same for women, but mostly the men. So it is it's true. It happens a lot. I mean, they have 3, 4, 5 bank accounts all over the place. The wife has no idea because they're hiding it from her, and he dies, and only he knows he has those monies. And if nobody claims the money, it becomes a forfeited asset.
How many years would that take for it to be forfeited?
Well, I mean, the money is there, nobody's claiming it, the bank takes it. Here in New York, if the money is there for 1 year and there has been no recent activity, it has to be surrendered to the controller's office. So if you go and search in the controller's office database now, you may find out that you had some money in the bank and you forgot about it, and they have your name there as somebody who is entitled to that money. But I don't think they have that law in Ghana. So that is the situation. So it's good to, at least if you have a bank account, put it somewhere, some book somewhere with the account number and whatever. So if you are not there, your wife can pursue it and go and claim that money.
Yeah, John, I have a question for you. My question is, I'm a Ghanaian. I live in the US. I have properties in Ghana. I have properties in the US. Is it advisable to have 2 wills? One will to cover the properties in Ghana, another will to cover those in the US for sake of convenience, so that we don't have to, have one big will to cover all my assets. Can I have 2 wills? One for Ghana and one for US?
No, you cannot have 2 wills. The last will takes precedence over any previous will. Because if you look at a will, the first sentence is that this is my last will and testament, and it revokes all previous wills. Okay. So you cannot have 2 wills. And the will, any will has to conform to the law of your domicile. So are you domiciled in Ghana or are you domiciled in the US? So if you are domiciled in the US, your Ghana will is invalid. And if you are domiciled in Ghana, your US will is invalid.
Okay.
But you can still mention the properties you have in the US in Ghana in the US will.
Yes, you have to. You have to, because your will covers properties you have everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay.
In the world. Yes.
Thank you.
And your beneficiaries in Ghana will also get a share, right? If you list them in the will here in the US.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what about if in a situation you decide not to list your children as beneficiaries, either because of their character, you just don't want them to benefit from you, from your property? Do they have any rights? Is any recourse for them? Can they take any action against the executor?
Well, what happens is if you can inherit your children, okay, but they might go and hire a lawyer and try to prove that there was some undue influence over you, because there's no way you could just disinherit them, or that you were not of sound mind when you executed the will. So if they're able to throw out the will, then you become intestate. And if they inherit from you under intestacy, then that's better for them. So that could result in a lot of litigation. So it's better to give them something small than to disinherit them altogether. And if you see that the kid is troublesome, you add an interiorum clause. Interiorum clause is to say that I'm giving you this property under the will, but if you go and challenge the will in court and you are not successful, then you should lose your inheritance. It's meant to discourage frivolous will contests.
Like Chatu, I have two questions actually. So the first one is you said that if you are domiciled in Ghana, US wills is invalid, and vice versa, right? And then you also said that if you are in the US, you can add your Ghana properties to the. So there is a confusion, and can you clarify that?
Okay, maybe I was not very artful. What I meant was that a will, you can only have one will. You can only have one will. You can have two wills because the most recent will predominate over the previous will. Okay, you can add to a will in an instrument called a codicil. You can have a codicil to add to the will. So you have a will, you have two houses, now you've built a third house, which you did not mention in your will. You can have a codicil to say, okay, this extra house, I want to go to that person, because you did not have the house at the time you made a will. But you can now make two wills, one to cover your US property and one to cover your Ghana property. The latest will predominate. So saying that one will be valid according to the US domicile and the other according to Ghana domicile, it's not perfectly accurate. What I should say is that the latter will predominate.
But John,
let me explain. Let me come to this. Let's say you make a will in the US and it conforms to US law, and you make a latter will in Ghana and it does not conform to Ghana law, then they might admit the US will to probate and throw out the Ghana will.
But John, what about—
Is that clear or it's a bit confusing?
John, what about if both wills are dated the same day? The Ghana will, US will, dated the same day. They were all attested to, executed the same day. Which one will prevail over the other?
Well, the point is that anytime you are making a will, you are saying that this will revokes all previous wills.
Yeah, but if they are both dated the same time, which one would be
highly irregular to have? Well, that will become a novel situation, but I haven't yet seen any case where a person makes two wills dated the same day to cover properties in two different jurisdictions. It doesn't happen. And no lawyer will advise you to do that. because a will covers all properties you have all over the world. So there's no reason to make a will to cover properties in. So if you have 8 houses in the US, then you have a will to cover each state. It doesn't happen. So you can have 2 wills dated even the same day to cover properties in Ghana. Here, 1 will is what covers all properties.
Okay. And whether if you're a dual citizen, that will not matter.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if you're a dual citizen, you are a citizen of Ghana and also here, right? So you still cannot have 2 wills.
But the issue is not whether you are a dual citizen or not. The issue is whether 1 will, whatever you want to be done in a Ghana will can be done in a US will. If you want to give your house at Accra to Ama, you can mention that in your US will. So why have another will in Ghana saying this house should go to Ama? So whatever provisions you can have in your Ghana will can be in your US will. So there's no need to have, wills are not made to cover properties you have in only a certain jurisdiction. Wills are made to cover all your properties wherever they are. Otherwise, if you own 3 or 4 houses in the US, you have to make a will for each state where your property is. And that is not the law.
Okay, Chachu, let me finish my question, right? I have 2A and 2B. So when you show the Ghana will and the US will, right? The Ghana will, there is provision for your sisters and brothers. I think that would be an interest for your sisters and brothers to be against your wife because they will benefit from your will, right? In the US, your sisters and brothers don't have any say. But in Ghana, they have a say. So I think that it's not for discussion today, but that is very weird when I saw that provision for your sisters. Okay.
So if you say, let's say, oh, okay. If you have a will here and you go to Ghana and make another will, and that will in Ghana revoke it.
You know, my point is your sisters and brothers should not have any say, right? That is my point. Because it looks like Ghana, they have an interest. So they can politicize you and your wife, right? Your husband, because they will benefit. Anyway, that's by the way. My final point is this: can the will be challenged, right? If you make the will and the will,
if you die in the US and your will conforms to US law, yeah, it's not what. Remember, we have the widow's right of election, so that gives your wife a huge portion of your assets.
Yeah. What I mean is, you can make a will, but like you are saying, right? You have so many kids, you didn't say all the right thing, and when you are died, you are dead or something, right? So, is there provision in the law, whether it's Ghana or US, for the will to be challenged, and you can anybody win, right? Because you didn't make the right thing, and later on, when you are dead, you realize that you have other kids or family that should benefit. Can the will be challenged in the US or Ghana? And is there a chance that you can win?
No, a will covers your person. You can win a will contest if you're able to prove that the testator was not of sound mind, or the testator was under some sort of undue influence, or was coerced in any way. Yes, and if you win, then the will can be thrown out, and then it goes into intestacy. But you have to be able to prove it. You can't just say, well, he loved Dan more than John. How come he gave more to John than Dan? It cannot be correct. There was something wrong there. So unless you're able to prove that the person was not of sound mind, or the person has some undue influence over him or her in making a will, you can't win. But people do win.
That is a huge bar. How can you prove that, right? That's huge. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I get it.
Well, yeah. Maybe the person was in intensive care at the hospital, and was on morphine, which knocked him out. And at the same time, the person signed a will, or you have copies of the person's signature, and the signature on the will looks nothing like the person's signature, you know, or the person's nurse's aide was standing over him and say, okay, if you don't sign, I'm not going to clean you up, I'm not going to take care of you. You know, there are so many situations where people are, you know, pressurized to execute wills. So if you have proof and you go to court and you're able to convince the judge, yes, then they throw the will out, and then the property is distributed as if you are intestate.
Yeah, John, let me add this bit to the will component. If you are a beneficiary of a will, when it comes to witnesses and you are a beneficiary of the will, please don't sign the will. Beneficiaries of the will must not sign the will as attesting witnesses. If you do so, you might, I don't know about you, you are going to lose the portion of the estate that has been given to you. So if you are writing your will, you are giving your wife and your children, whoever is a beneficiary of your will, must not sign the will as a witness. Otherwise, you will lose the portion of the estate that comes to you. All right?
Yeah.
Is it for Ghana or for US or both?
Everywhere in the world, beneficiaries must not be attesting witnesses. So bear that in mind.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, so you have time there.
You know, Madam Shredimajomota, by force. I think I tried to close the near my question border on the last one. Does the will ever expire? If I write a will 5 years ago, 10 years ago, without updating it, will it ever expire? My second question is, you say it must have 2 witnesses. Does any of those, or does the will have to be signed by an attorney? And I think my third question have just been answered. So whether the beneficiary can witness the will. So answer the first 2 questions for me, and that should be fine. Thank you. Okay. Let me count. Okay, so the notion that a beneficiary should not be a witness, that if the will can be valid without that beneficiary's signature, then the will can be admitted to probate. So the will needs at least 2 witnesses. So if the beneficiary signs and one other person signs, if they disregard the beneficiary's signature, then there's only 1 witness, and therefore the will is invalid. But if 2 or 3 other people sign in addition to the beneficiary, then that will can be valid, even though the beneficiary signed. The precaution is that if the beneficiary signs, it is easier for someone to use that to try to prove undue influence over the testator. So it is very important to make sure the beneficiary doesn't sign in order not to give anybody cover to raise undue influence. The other thing is that a will does not expire, but however, it is very important to update your will. If you write a will and say, I give everything to my wife, after that you have 2 or 3 children, you have to revise the will to provide for your children. If you and your wife are divorced and you mention, I give everything to Mercy, now you are no longer married to Mercy, it doesn't matter that you are divorced. Once her name is in the will, she will take all the property.
There you go.
You know, or you appointed somebody as executor, the person died before you. You need to revise the will and name a new executor. Okay. You bought a new house, which you haven't mentioned in the will. You have to revise your will to determine who should get that. So any situation that changes what you can give to someone in the will, any marriage, any divorce, any after children, any new scenario which is not catered for in the will, should give you the chance or opportunity to reverse your will.
Wow.
Otherwise, your will may not provide for your current circumstances.
Yeah.
And no, you don't need an attorney to execute a will. You can prepare the will yourself, have two of your friends witness you sign a will, and it is as valid as any will. But people go to lawyers because lawyers usually keep a copy of the will in their office. Lawyers also make sure that they do everything to ensure that the will is not challenged, or if challenged, it's not successful, because they'll follow all the laws regarding wills when they are helping you to prepare and execute the will. But there is no requirement that an attorney prepare the will or even supervises the execution of the will.
Yeah. Yeah, Novinho, lawyer Kalu Apuncho, disability and retirement, workers' compensation and all that stuff. We still have a few more minutes to go. Any other questions about the other topics we discussed? Yo, this is Daniel. Marco Bialo.
Yo. Unmute yourself.
For Kenya retirement age
Chimagba.
Lawyer Marco Sanyana. What is the retirement age now? I know you spoke about 62 years, 67 years, and also having 40 credits.
Early retirement is 62, and then late retirement is 67, also called full retirement.
Okay,
So, and then lawyer, you said that if you work for 10 years, you can file for Social Security, right? Or if you have 40 credits.
Okay, you have to work for a minimum of 10 years to be what is called disability insured, yes, to qualify for Social Security retirement. And every year is 4 quarters. So 10 years is 40 quarters of work. So once you've worked for 40 quarters, once you've worked for 10 years or you've garnered 40 quarters of work, you are qualified for retirement. But that doesn't mean you can retire at 50 or 52 and collect retirement. You have to meet the retirement age of 62 before you can collect retirement benefits.
And if you are 62 or 67 and you don't meet the 40 quarters requirement, can you still benefit from that Social Security fund?
You cannot get SSD, you can get SSI. SSI is welfare, which means that you cannot go and live in Ghana and collect that money. And that money, because it is welfare, is very minimal. It's maybe $500 a month, maybe $450 a month. But if it's SSD, you can go to Ghana and every month you go to the US Embassy and collect your check, or you can have them deposit it in your bank account here because something you work for, which you are entitled to. The SSD is because you do not meet the requirements, and therefore the federal government is giving you welfare, and there are conditions attached. You cannot have more than $2,000 in your bank account. You cannot have a car worth more than $2,000. You cannot have properties. You cannot, if you have a spouse, both of you cannot have more than $3,000. You cannot go and live outside the US for more than 30 days. So there are all these requirements which don't apply to SSD. So it's very tragic because there are people who work for 38 quarter hours or 39. They only need 1 quarter hour they were injured at work, they couldn't work anymore, but they cannot collect the Social Security disability, even though they've worked for several years.
Okay, I have one more question.
Yes, sister.
Na wo dollar fee na michoba na qualify for Social Security, I mean the retirement payment. Then do you have to arrange na joira Ghana? Michoba na joira Ghana. Be I know you check a home la Ghana. Do you have to? How do you go about it before you end up at the embassy asking for a check?
Yes, you have to go to Social Security and apply for retirement. And then you have to discuss with them how you want your payments made. You can apply for direct deposit, or you can say you should send my check to the US Embassy in Ghana for me to collect every month. Yeah, it's easier. Now people use ATM cards in Ghana, ATM cards from Chase and other banks, or you can have, they have this Cash App and other things that you can use to transfer money from your bank account here to your account in Ghana. So now it's very easy. So I think it is best to have.
So you don't necessarily have to have
a deposit here, and then you can always withdraw the money in Ghana.
Okay. So you don't necessarily have to have a dollar account, they call it, for them to send it directly in there for you. Can you provide them with?
No. You can transfer money from here. You can transfer money from here. Okay, you can have an account here. They will pay it into your account. And there are several apps that you can use to transfer money from here to Ghana, and they will pay you in cedis in Ghana. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
They just take a little bit of the exchange rate. That's how they make their money, but you still get your money in Ghana. Or you can even use your Chase ATM card in Ghana. They will just do the conversion from dollars to cedis. There are a lot of African Americans who have relocated to Ghana, and they transfer money here all the time to Ghana to spend there. So it's not a problem.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's 9:30 now. I mean, that's my
Yeah,
time, but your time is 10:30.
That's why I have like one and a half questions for the
oh yes, please.
Okay. So this is now Lafia Wodo in a retire, right? Now retire, you have the options to stay here in your house, or you can relocate back in Ghana. Now, Amaru Nofia Bukaka, at some point you have to move to a retirement home. Can you retirement home? The retirement home, I don't think it's free. Is it free? I think the government would take some money from your Social Security or something to pay for you stay in a retirement home. Is that right? If that is the case, is it better that you can, I don't know how much it would take to pay for your retirement home anyway, but I know people who retired and they live in a house and eventually they move to retirement home and they started losing, they say the money they are taking is more than much, so they move back to Ghana. So what I'm asking, is it better that once you retire, instead of going to retirement home here, you can just move back home in Ghana where you don't have to pay it for retirement home? So my question to you is, the money when you live in a retirement, how much do they take for your retirement? Is it better to live, go to Ghana, or you stay here and stay in a retirement home? That's pretty my question.
That's an excellent question. I'm going to give a very practical example.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to mention names. There was someone here who was here for so many years, over 40 years, doesn't go home, and had a stroke. And he was put in a nursing home. Now, nursing home, it could be $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month. And the government policy is that you have to spend all the money you have. You have to liquidate any assets you have. If you have sold a house within a year or two, you have to claw all that back, because the assumption is that you sold the house because you know you're going to get sick. So you give the house away so that you can have have the government pay for you. So before the government would pick up any payments. So what happened was that this gentleman was in a nursing home for a long time. The government took all his monies in the bank, everything. And what the brothers did was that he was past retirement, but they purposely refused to file for retirement for him. He came out, had a second stroke, went back to the nursing home, and despite the fact that he hasn't been going home, the smartest thing he did in his life was to build a house in Ghana, even though he wasn't going. So what they did was they timed him. When he became better, they went and quickly applied for Social Security retirement for him, put him on the plane to Ghana, and some companies have now set up this home health aid, home health care in Ghana. So they hired someone from there to be taking care of him in Ghana. And then they were collecting his retirement benefits and using that to look after him in Ghana before he finally passed around 86 or 87 years old. So if they had applied for retirement for him, or if he had applied for retirement benefits, the government would have taken that money also to pay for his nursing home care. So if you're in a nursing home for a long time, don't think that you're going to leave any properties for your children or your spouse. The government will make sure that anything you have is sold, all your bank accounts are drained to the last dollar and used to pay for all your treatment before they'll come in and chip in.
Yeah, good
So
point.
that is a very practical example.
Yeah,
and there is a difference between the retirement home and a nursing home. People who are living in retirement home, actually, they are paying themselves. They just don't want to take care of their retirement home. Nursing home, nursing home, but retirement home, they are fine.
Yeah, okay, that's good. It's a good explanation.
Thanks for that clarification. That miracle, time Devo Ken Fashila G for some time. That my last chance. No, be a fast. I wrap it up. Ken. Hello, Ken.
I think he's muted.
Yeah, you are muted though. We can hear you.
Unmute
yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Miracle, my dear recording Namia Tengu and now unavailable Namia because Yamaruela Domata, you might think you to Ikatan.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. President, we can make that available, right? Okay, very good. Yo, Miracle, Over vivimo vona gonko fi afi kone funabo tam la ginsami right now ta mijema mia adakpena mianovi lawyer John ba o apo time remianchi eva this evening eva pong na mi cho anyama viewingchi jojinami ta on behalf of ADANA members, the executives and members Mimi ada kweto here now, but take a chance of a pungna micho nyanchi. Ke nonye be amade be a contact for. I know you mentioned that you try to help Ghanaians in some ways as you can. I don't know if you can make your information available to those who want to contact you, or they can contact the president, and then he will let you know. So. I don't know how you say it. Is that better?
That's fine. If they contact the president, I'll make my.
Very good.
Yes.
Yeah. Ta akpekaka ewe do akpena. Merku mi da kwena me. Oh, at the phone barafuma kema mayuna mi enye 718-828-0888. 718-828-0888. Ta ima akpanami. You, Mr. President, Miracle, open your door. I wouldn't Miracle, I hand over to you. Akbalo.
Ayo, akpa foto donatus, akpa abe na plomicho, you thinking of plomicho, may take off from JFK to George Bush International, via Dulles, via Accra, mega trouble, akpa abe na lead the mimi koko iru war one lawyer John akpa no kakaka be na nami a lot of information. Information also go Malaysia by Rewela Malaysia Matanchi a graphicaton Kakano Berli Matanchi Sawa Yakwasi in a full up. One of the team of planning every 1 day can I focus in Doma. Be aware, but you are getting 1 day closer to your retiring age. Tamikata 1 day if Maroga. 1 day not go to work, you are approaching your retiring age by 1 day, or you're 1 day less from your retiring age. Now, Habobo and Corners, similar fear, me by Anglican Development Association. Yapa Tarojinu Kunyeba, Uberaka or Menusala. Mia Wuraka, Mia Atroshi, Mia Deunchi, Mia de Chicago, Mikatami Blon, Anglonia Glomilla, Anglo District Yablomilla. Ta never nature Anglo District, net the Suplangon District. Ikata cow. Yapa Taroji Mia Troshi, Mia Kunchi, let me atroshi Mia Deunchi, like a Mia would Mia Denano. The Miricha, maybe Fiarevo, but a Patoko called a Koji. Aro Fiarevo, no good to the way here. Now, take a who do I? A hemel mood, Mia Troshin Murunchi, Remia Deunchi. Maybe Mia Fiaco, Macamio, do Manuma Swap. Ta anyu be miawo fiflefia mikata miebe Angloga district Angloga hospital basu district ala one project wo mi be miachi trauma district clinic amuchi mi babaji se clinic mo 1950s ma ko in da 1956 ma ko in da development to avivasu district capital fia rukuwa ba clinic back bere ko la kan that's one of the project mi o mema ta alemia pasimia donchi now come omoji mi le fin ha ni mi wana nyebe nyeru kijibe na every quarter mi awo seminar I educate mi aroki mi asronu ta this quarter enyi mi sronu to financial education chi next quarter ha ala mi osenya ko mi garoto mi ga second na mi ga set next quarter ya mi nya fana mi kaka mi ga no bo no nyebe ko ba jara la kutu mana we na jibe gbede mi akpo ha mi hoga fa na me nyakwa miaticha we are 501c3 organization ta nu na na shereke na mia is tax deductible at the end of the year rukuma do nu semikata be mia agere mia domi na pere mia nchi because over mi we no nyo akpe ke mia ko egbeto akpo asera afisia kaka enyi nufumo yana be David Abusa no nye be biara la shi waro na be biara na be reach out to Mr. John Akpalwa na manya kaka akpena mikata nyaweva onyo dono na mi dogba bye bye.